Washington State just passed one of those triple taxes on one of the few assets that's meant to protect you from the government, aka gold. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the three taxes that are being imposed against you, how everything is fundamentally changed, how Washington State is on a massive tax spree, on a massive spending spree, and how they have to come to you to get more and more revenue. We're going to talk about how you need to do something before 2026, before all of these taxes are imposed and in place. And this isn't one of those political rants. This is a financial fire drill for those of us, myself included, who own and hold precious metals. I want you to ask yourself a question. Why is Washington State coming after the G's? Guns, gold, and gas. Why are they attacking that specifically? I'm Anton Stetner. I love talking about business, finance, Washington State, real estate, and investing in our state. I own multiple businesses here. I do a bunch of real estate, and this one just drives me insane. So I wanted you to be paying attention, because if you hold gold, everything is fundamentally changing right now. The core problem with this whole thing is the state repealed. It's gone. The 1985 exemption that treated bullion like a financial instrument, like a stock. And now they're looking at this as a consumable, as a taxable commodity. This is creating massive sticker shock. You're going to pay a 6.5% sales tax on gold, on silver, on copper, on other precious metals, plus your local taxes. That means the taxes in total could be up to 10% of the sales price. So think of it very simply. For every $10,000 in gold that you're selling, 1,000 of that you're basically lighting right on fire and giving to the government. This immediately requires you to start looking at your cost basis and looking at your returns from a completely different level. And that's just layer one. The next tax actually hits the dealers themselves, which is going to affect your pricing that you're able to get for your precious metals even more. And it's very sneaky how this is done. But first, I need you to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and share this with someone else who needs to understand what's happening to their precious metals right now. If you think that taxing wealth preservation, a wealth asset, actual currency. See, this is what's crazy. Gold can still be a coin. Silver can be a coin. And Washington State is telling you that they're going to tax you by like up to 10% for your assets. This is a terrible idea. So subscribe and share this with someone else. So the second layer is the B&O tax exemption was repealed. The B&O taxes are what the dealers have to pay as they sell the coins out to someone else. And both of these taxes go into effect January 1st, 2026. This B&O tax is a tax at the top line of the revenue in relation to sales. And what happens is that gets passed directly on to the consumer. And this sales tax, as it's combined with their operating margins, what this does is it's probably going to create a 7 to 10% friction cost towards you, the consumer. Now think about this. What is this going to do to places in the local area, like Bellevue Rare Coin, place I've bought some coins from before? What it does is this B&O tax effectively affects their margin, which will make them and other people, and I wasn't trying to single them out, I think they do a phenomenal job. It's going to make their margins get pinched, which is going to cause people who are very conscientious to start to look, well, maybe I need to purchase this outside of Washington State, which then hurts our local economy and our local consumers. Now, before we get into the third tax, or the ultimate tax, which is the capital gains hit, I want to go through the specific legislation that allowed this to happen. This is not just an isolated event. This is an overall trend in Washington State. And I want you to see how the game is being played out here in Washington and how progressively we're just asking for more and more taxes. You see, this wasn't a standalone bill. It was formalized under ESSB 5794. This is part of that multi-billion-dollar tax package. And there's an estimate that the tax package that was passed this year is going to raise $9.4 billion in additional taxes here in Washington state. It is the largest tax increase in history. And Bob Ferguson ran as a little bit more moderate, saying, no, I wasn't going to do this, and he just signed it right into law. Our state needs to cut back on its spending anywhere, just a little bit, and stop raising taxes. We're starting just to pinch every part of business. The other parts that were included inside of this was the B&O tax, the gas tax, more capital gains. And I want you to ask yourself, why are they attacking everything? See, we did another video all about breaking down the gas tax and how we have some of the highest gas taxes here in the nation. They are just atrocious. And then a couple weeks ago, in the beginning of September or second week in September, we were paying some of the highest fuel prices in the nation. And our state seems to be targeting the G's. Guns, gold, and gas. And when I say gas, I'm talking about fuel prices, but I'm also talking about natural gas. In natural gas, notice how you can't build a home and include natural gas anymore. How it's almost impossible to get that level of energy credits. And yet, our state went and we filled out a specific initiative, got it passed again, and then they basically overturned it. They don't want you to have natural gas. They don't want you to have guns. They keep pinching everything down. So we're losing the 3 Gs here, people. And in reality, the revenue they're expecting to generate from this is only about $55 to $60 million, which sounds kind of small, but that $55–60 million has to come out of your pocket or anyone else who's thinking about or considering selling their precious metals here in Washington state. And this happens once again right at the beginning of 2026. So you need to ask yourself, what is my strategy long term? Should I be selling some of this now? Should I be buying more of this now? What's going to happen to prices here in Washington state in relation to this? And I can't believe, and this is the main reason I made this video, that they are literally taxing currency. If it is a freaking gold coin that could be used, they are still taxing it. That blows my mind. Washington state never met a tax they didn't like. All right, let's skip into the punishing layer, the capital gains tax. Oh my goodness. This one is going to completely gut and obliterate your long-term returns in gold. So one of the other things to be thinking about is maybe I'm just not going to be a seller in the future and I'm just going to hold my precious metals forever. Bullion, when held for investment over a year, is considered a long-term capital asset subject to the CGT, or the capital gains tax. This is progressive paying. So the standard rate is 7% on gains over $250,000 annual deduction, but the new legislation adds a top tier of 9.9% on gains in excess of $1 million. That's a dual taxation just trap. You pay 10% sales tax on the principal and then up to 9.9% on the gain. And you're saying, but wait, Anton, I don't have $1 million. But what if a relative left that to you? What if somehow you did end up with $1 million? All you gotta do is look at how much gold has been shooting up lately. Can you see a point in the future when quite possibly, maybe in the future, 10, 20 years from now, maybe 30 years from now, your gold could be worth over $1 million, or your silver, or your platinum, whatever precious metals that you have. Now, this crazy CGT tax doesn't apply for retirement accounts. It doesn't apply for real estate, but it is hitting this specific sector really crazy. Now let's talk about leverage and how to possibly use this new law against them. The primary obstacle you're going to face is this 7 to 10% sales tax on the purchase. So strategy number one, you could expedite your acquisitions. That's what I'm saying. If you were going to buy before January 1st, 2026. Let's go expedite those sales and buy today before this happens. This is the only 100% legal way that I can see inside of the crazy system Washington state has built in order to avoid some of these insane taxes. Strategy number 2 would be the jurisdiction arbitrage. This might be the game changer. This might be the hack. So bullion is internationally fungible. It's highly sensitive to price. Investors are strongly advised to maybe then start buying in neighboring states like Oregon and Idaho, which currently plan to maintain their bullion exemptions. I mean, if you're making a larger purchase, 7 to 10%, let's just call it 10%, adds up significantly. That might be worth a little drive or a vacation. In other words, would you trade a little bit of time to drive to a different dealer if it resulted in a massive savings? I think most of us that have purchased these kind of hard physical assets are doing it for a very conservative reason. We like the tangible feel of them. We like the fact that it's never going to zero. We like that it can always be traded for something. And we're probably the type of people that would drive a little bit. I know I would, in order to get a deal. So I've given you a couple strategies on how to avoid these coming sales taxes. But what about selling? We need a long-term exit plan to avoid the potential 9.9% gains on top of the capital gains tax. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to give you a 2-step process, kind of a financial planner's move for maximum gain retention. So this is a selling strategy for high net worth investors to integrate the $250K or $250,000 annual capital gains taxation threshold into your asset disposition strategy. Realizing gains strategically in different years to avoid the 9.9% rate. So in other words, if you did have over $1 million, you're going to split it up into chunks and you're going to end up selling that over time. This also is going to encourage investors to rely on generational transfers. This may be things that you're going to be putting inside of your will and then willing to the next generation. And we're going to be constantly looking for jurisdiction flexibility and how the tax laws may be changing or impacting us in the future. And right now it's basically buy now before January 1st, 2026, buy out of state, and then maximize your exemptions so that you don't hit that $1 million threshold under the capital gains tax here in Washington state. This is the blueprint to deal with the craziness of they're coming for your gold. They're taxing actual currency. They're treating it now as a commodity. And we need to push back against Washington state. We have to push back against this ridiculousness. I love it here, but let's be honest. Some of this is just insane that they're taxing actual currency. This is a severe financial penalty on a specific asset class that people like to hold for the safety and protection that it provides. Because generally speaking, the government is not coming to get your gold, but I feel like this tax is them coming to get your gold. So don't let Washington state dictate your financial freedom. Figure out ways to deal with this and to deal with this in the future, and be prepared for more changes coming down the pike, because these were the largest tax increases and the most changes I've personally seen in my 46 years. I'm Anton Stetner. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone else who needs to know about this to protect their gold, their silver, their platinum here in Washington state. And let me know your questions in the comments below and how we can best help you guys with wealth building here in our state.